How many of us here tonight would find a serviette under a table at a restaurant and lick it just to get a taste of food? Like, it's pretty nutritious, I reckon. I can still smell last night's lamb chops on there and a bit of salad, and I think I wiped my mouth on it after I had a crepe that Katrina cooked. Yeah, we had a really nice dinner last night. You've got a whole meal on that one. Greens and meat and dessert as well. Does anyone want to have a go?
No, thank you.
Oh, that's a very polite way to decline there, Phil. Yeah, you'd have to be an absolute desperado, wouldn't you? But that's where Lazarus is at in Jesus' little tale. He is absolutely desperate. I didn't know this until the other day, reading up on this parable. But in those ancient times, they had used a piece of flatbread to wipe their hands on because, they weren't all civilized and, descended from English or European style. They didn't have a nice knife and fork and the right spoon to use. They used their paws, very COVID unsafe, licking their fingers, and their fingers would be greasy, and they'd wipe their hands on a piece of flatbread and then chuck it under the table, which the dogs would come and eat. Lazo is so desperately hungry, he longs to eat the spent serviettes from under the table of the rich man. Some people immediately jump into thinking that Jesus is teaching us something about the afterlife in this tale of the nameless rich loser and Lazo the winner. You know what? Repeatedly and almost everywhere, Jesus talks about the very real impact of the kingdom of heaven as it intersects our reality here and now. He isn't interested in pie in the sky, and he talks repeatedly about the day that is surely coming when the dead will be raised to new life and they will live in the age to come, and of God's judgment. But he's not overly concerned about any of that here in this story he's telling, because Jesus has just told a story about the proper purpose and use of money. Go back and have a look at the start of chapter 16. He had just taken the Pharisees down a peg or two publicly because they loved money. And Jesus was this blunt with the whole crowd: disciples, Pharisees, tax collectors, and sinners. You cannot serve God and money, full stop. So Jesus tells this story taking images from their popular culture of the day about how the righteous dead go to live and be with Abraham and hang out with him like their bosom buddies. He tells this story to drive home his point that you cannot serve God and money. And then he takes it one step further. In their world, the popular but unbiblical belief was that the rich are blessed by God and that the poor are actively cursed by him, as though the rich deserve to be rewarded by God and as though the poor have done something terribly evil to deserve their lot. But you know what? That's not a belief from ancient times. We still believe that stuff today. How often do we say, and you've heard me say this before, when I win the lotto, fill in the blank. Even if we've never bought a ticket, it's a wishful thinking, isn't it? Because we look at the rich, we look at the famous on TV, and we think, man, wouldn't it be awesome to be those people? And we want to be them. We think they're blessed. We think they've got the best life. And how often do we talk about people in poverty as though it's their fault somehow? As though every last one of them is lazy and deserves nothing. The truth is, we're too busy stepping over the poor to enjoy our money, our consumer products, and our food-laden tables to even notice that they're there. We see the homeless in the street and we just walk on by. Oh, was there something there? Jesus tells a horrific little tale where the happy ending is for the destitute man lying in the gutter with dogs licking the open ulcers in his body. This man, the happy ending is that he dies. Wow. The angels come and grab him and fly him off to be with Abraham as bosom buds, and the rich man burns because he ignored the message of the Bible. This is the happy ending? Wow. That's pretty dark, Jesus. The Pharisees knew the Bible inside out, but their money was blinding them to some of its most repeated messages. Go back and look at Exodus. Go back and look at Leviticus. I know it's not a thrill a minute, but this stuff is in there. Go back and look at Deuteronomy and Numbers. Here's an example. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap to the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the alien. I am who I am, your God. Elsewhere he says, since there will never cease to be some in need on the earth, I therefore command you, open your hand to the poor and needy neighbour in your land. And still elsewhere, God says, cursed be anyone who deprives the alien, the orphan, and the widow of justice. All the people shall say, Amen. You know what? Those people who were in desperate need in Egypt, who had lived in utter destitution, who were being wiped out by genocide and were delivered by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm by God from slavery into freedom, they ignored the poor, the needy, the widow, the alien, and the orphan. And so God sent prophets who repeatedly preached their impending disaster because they were failing one of the most basic and repeated commands that God had given them, to care for the least among them. And everything they had, everything they cherished, was taken away from them. The Pharisees know all this inside out. Yet what action has flowed forth from it? Jesus says in certain places they keep heaping up burdens on people's backs. They steal widows' inheritance for their own gain. They love money, so they hate what he's saying. And in the end, they'll wind up murdering him for everything he's said and done. And they won't even believe even when he returns from the dead. Jesus, in telling his tale, is daring the Pharisees and his own disciples to be faithful with the knowledge of the Bible that they have. They don't need someone to come back from the dead. They have everything they need in Moses and the prophets. That's not even to say about the Psalms and the rest of the Old Testament, or what we have, the treasure of the gospel and the hope we have in the things to come that were written about by the apostles. The Pharisees have everything they need in Moses and the prophets. You and I now know more about the Bible, even with our most rudimentary knowledge, than most of the people in the history of the whole world. We are extraordinarily rich in terms of biblical understanding. And we've even had the benefit of someone returning from the grave to drive home the fact that the words written in the scriptures are true in every detail. The Pharisees and the scribes failed to enact the knowledge that God had given them. How will we be faithful with this vast treasure of knowledge that we've been given? How will we be faithful with the money that God has blessed us with. Great or small the amount may be. Because in the end, this whole chapter of chapter 16 is about our faithfulness to God. Stan Lee, who may or may not have been a disciple of Jesus, says in one of his most famous lines through the mouth of Spider-Man, Spider-Man's uncle, "With great power comes great responsibility." We're one of the richest peoples on the face of the earth, so that makes us one of the most powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. How will we be faithful to God with our money? And with great knowledge comes extraordinary responsibility. If we don't act out of this knowledge and share it and share all we have in faithfulness to God, there's a day coming when it'll be just too late. This Jesus says to us again today, "Honour my Dad's name. I give you this day your daily bread. I deliver you from evil. I forgive you your debts. So be faithful to me in the little that I have given you, and I'll trust you with true riches." Amen.